Pac-Man on the Nintendo Entertainment System was a fairly solid conversion of the original arcade classic, and as such, this Classic NES Series release on Game Boy Advance does a fairly good job of emulating / replicating that particular version. However, those looking for Pac-Man goodness on the GBA shouldn't bother with this cartridge. Why? More on that later. Let's talk about the game itself. As most people know, the goal of Pac-Man is relatively straightforward. You gobble up all the pellets in the maze while avoiding the 4 ghosts. Acquire a power pellet to turn the ghosts blue and grant you the ability to gobble them up for bonus points. Once you clear the maze of pellets, you move on to the next round where the ghosts are somewhat faster and the power pellets have a less lasting effect. Also retained from the arcade game are the intermission sequences that would play after clearing a couple rounds. For the most part, Pac-Man controls well with the stock Nintendo D-pad, and the overall play mechanics of the arcade original have been retained. There's also a 2-player alternating mode which allows you and a friend to compete for the higher score. That's pretty much the whole game in a nutshell. Simple to understand, challenging to win, but ultimately fun to play. Though since this is plain Jane Pac-Man, there's not much in terms of variety. Same maze, same patterns, same layout, but this GBA version does allow you to save your high score for whatever that's worth. Graphically speaking, Pac-Man looks good even in comparison to the arcade version. Seeing that the arcade Pac-Man used a vertically tall screen, the playfield of Pac-Man was scaled down to fit the height of the television while moving the score, the lives counter, and fruit display to the right side of the screen. All in all, the game looked excellent on the NES with virtually no slowdown or flicker, and when it comes to this GBA transfer, the reduction in resolution is fairly minimal. The maze, dots, and ghosts are still very easy to make out. Then you have the familiar Pac-Man sound effects that you would associate with Pac-Man. The sounds in this version seem to have a lower tempo, but otherwise do an impressive job of recreating the familiar sound effects from the arcade version. Excellent sound quality on this NES to GBA home conversion. Pac-Man on the NES is one of the better home conversions out there for the time. It plays well, looks great, sounds good, and is just a tremendously enjoyable video game that's good for a quick fix or for long periods of time. That having been said, unless you're looking to complete the Classic NES Series set on GBA, don't get this game if you're looking for Pac-Man on the go. Not because it's a bad port of the NES game, but because it's only the NES game. It's only Pac-Man. It's only one game. This also came out a year or so after Namco released a pretty impressive Pac-Man collection for the Game Boy Advance, which not only contained the original Pac-Man in arcade form, but also Pac-Man Arrangement, Pac-Mania, and Pac-Attack. That makes the collection a much more worthwhile purchase, and this Classic NES Series entry a baffling choice to make part of the series. It's almost like re-releasing the original Metroid on its own cart, even though it was an unlockable game in another Metroid title released a year prior. Oh wait!